you've poured belief in me and helped me be able to make decisions or recognize things before I even knew what I wanted to do or before I even believed in myself.
And what I now know is I had never seen depicted in media a strong, powerful woman who stands up for herself and her rights, done in a kind way, based in forgiveness.
Because of that genuine desire to just grow and be the true person you are, causes me to want to be the true person I am.
Most of that was me trying to right a wrong. I was doing good to try to right a wrong, and the wrong that I was trying to right was me. Welcome, everyone, to the Living Richly podcast. We're so glad that you've joined us today. We always look forward to having great conversations together and have you listening in. And we're so excited about the ongoing support for the show and the momentum that we're seeing. I think we just crossed 75,000 subscribers.
How incredible is that?
YouTube channel, right?
Yeah.
So thank you. Without you, it wouldn't be possible. But we're here today to talk about creating legacy, building your legacy. And this is really the fourth element of the Quadrant Model that we've been exploring. Back in episode 76, we talked about designing the life that you've always dreamed of. That's the show that we actually launched, the 15-day Life Vision Challenge, which lots of folks have participated in. Episode 80, we looked at reclaiming your story, which is how to truly leverage your past to live a better life, live your richest life. And then most recently in episode 86, we looked at mastering the moment, which is all about showing up more fully in your life on a day-to-day basis, as opposed to being stuck in your past or obsessing about the future. But today we want to talk about legacy, and that's a big word. So I'm curious, let's kick off with, I think, a foundational question in your own words. And I'm going to throw this to you first, Wendy. What does the word legacy mean to you?
I think so. The first thing that comes to mind is it's that lasting impact that you're leaving based on the values that you uphold, what you've nurtured and cultivated in your life, and what people think of you as that continues to evolve.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah, I think for me, I think when we think about legacy, I think people get overwhelmed. Like it's this big thing that you have to achieve. And really it's, from my lens, it's, in really thinking about this and preparing for today, I was like, okay, a legacy, big. Even for me, I was like a bit overwhelmed by it. But I really do think it's the buildup of all those small things that you do in your life day to day. Are you living on purpose? Is it aligned with your values? I think at the end of the day, I don't think it has to be monumental in scope. If you use a sports analogy and, I've won 10 Super Bowls, and people think that legacy is huge. And I really do think it's the small everyday things that you do.
Yeah, love that.
One of my favorite movies, we've talked about movies in the past, Gladiator, right? Yeah. And one of the opening scenes when Russell Crowe's character, and he's, what you do in this life echoes through eternity. And it's like,
are you going to do the accent? You need to do the accent.
No, I'm not doing the accent.
He said it with the accent.
You're the accent guy. I'm not the accent guy. But it is, to your point, it's big words, and legacy is, and it can be this overwhelming idea of what are we going to do that's going to last for generations? Yeah. And I do think when you live out a legacy in the day-to-day stuff, the impact, to use echoes through eternity, or it impacts into the lives of the people you've influenced in ways that, you may not realize even in the moment. Yeah. But it is about the day-to-day experience, the things that we're doing now. And I love that we've done this on a number of episodes where we take big concept words and we normalize them.
Yeah.
And I think that's our goal today is to let's normalize legacy rather than make it this overwhelming thing that is about, down the road and what that experience is like.
Well, I think any futuristic way of looking at legacy, certainly that's an aspect of it, right? I think Philip Yancey years ago said you can tell the size of a ship that's passed out of view from the size of the weight it leaves behind in the water, right? Yeah. So, but often I used to think of that as, okay, well, after I'm gone, right? After I'm no longer here, what deposit will I have made in the lives of the people around me and the world around me that will continue to echo in eternity, right? To borrow Russell Crowe's quote from a great movie. And I think we recently geeked out on a bunch of movies, on
a whole bunch of them.
Our last Mindful Masculinity series. It was bad. You both would have been embarrassed, actually. Yeah.
I'm embarrassed.
You're still talking.
I'm still talking. But I think anytime we put it to the future, we lose the opportunity to make a difference now. And ultimately, when we talk about living your best life, if you're able to reclaim some of your past and some of that trauma, some of those hardships, and mine them for gold for now, if you're able to show up more fully in the present, if you're living a life that's more on point, right, and more deliberate and intentional, at some point, right, we have to start channeling that towards making the world a better place, or else it all kind of feels very self-serving.
Right. But I see legacy as the outcome or the result of the day-to-day stuff we're doing now. It's kind of, the end, what happens. It's the product that's created based on us living in the moment and living our best lives and all of that. And I've used this example. I've been using it for probably 35, 40 years. And I was sharing it with you guys before. And again, this notion of, and I challenge our listeners and those watching on YouTube or listening on the podcast, just right now, think about your great-grandparents. Can you name all of, so we're talking now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 different people. Can you give us their first and last names of all 8 people?
That's a rhetorical question. You're not asking us to actually.
I'm not asking it. No,
I can't do it.
And some might. And then I go, okay, well, how about your great grandparents? And what that tells us, can you name all 16?
Yeah.
The reality is within 2 to 3 generations, your own lineage won't even know your name.
Yeah.
So it's not about leaving. Legacy is not about having, the plaque on the wall or your name, the street named after you or whatever the case might be. It's about the little things that you do that cause that echo that impacts
that ripple.
The ripple that impacts the next generation, and maybe 20, 30 generations down the line. That's what we're talking about when it comes to making the world a better place.
I love that. I absolutely love that. What turning points or events in your lives have helped given shape to your understanding of legacy and making that impact in other people's lives?
Well, to tie into what Rob just said, for me, just like having kids, period, I understood really quickly the impact I had on their world. Right? From how I live my life, the expression kids don't do what you say, they do what you do. Right. So understanding that my kids are constantly watching me and learning from me. You learn early on when you swear, when your kids are like 4 or something and they swear and you're like, it's kind of funny at the beginning, let's be honest. But then it's like that moment of like, oh shit, right? Because you're like, they really do watch everything I do. And so for me that, did it happen when they were born? No. But over time, what I've realized is that having kids is the most important part of where I hope to leave a legacy. And that's through how I live my life. And that's the values and kindness. And that for me has been maybe the most important part, or where I want to leave the most impact.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think mine would be tied a little bit into kids when I think about my girls, but it also ties to when I made the decision to leave my first marriage because I wasn't whole. I wasn't happy. I wanted more despite so many people thinking I was selfish, but I wanted my daughters to be able to have those open conversations with them that at some point in their life, they will need to make decisions for them. And I wanted to leave that legacy or let them really understand that they can do, be, and have anything they want if they choose to live their purpose and they choose to live, authentically. There we go. Authentically.
There we go.
Whoa.
Nailed it.
Wow.
That was big.
Yeah, that's a big word.
It's a big word.
That is a big word. There's lots of syllables in
Thanks,
there.
guys.
There's lots of what?
There's lots of
What?
Syllable.
This is gonna be a great show.
Wow.
We're gonna sign up for a phonetics course after this.
It's gonna be one of those.
Enunciate our words.
Turning point around legacy for me, October 19, 2012 at 10 p.m.
Wow.
Specific.
Very
Exactly
specific.
10 p.m.
It was exactly 10 p.m. No, it was 10 p.m. I know because I looked at the time. And it was a defining moment for me. It was October 19th, my birthday. And it was a month after I had resigned and left the church world. At the time, I was getting all kinds of just nasty hate. I believe my reputation reputation was in ruins. My legacy was in ruins. My kids were devastated. And it was really my first engagement with them. I was staying at a friend's place. They were gone out that night. And so I went out for dinner with my girls and took them to a movie. And then the movie ended and I didn't want them to leave because I didn't want to be alone. So I said, hey, let's go watch another movie. And we did a second movie. And then they headed back to their mom's, and I went back to this house, and I'm sitting there completely alone, realizing that I was alone, that I had everything I'd built in my adult life up to that point was gone. And I remember sitting there just thinking, what am I going to be about?
Right.
What do I want to be remembered for? Who am I? What is my life? And that was an absolute moment. And, the couple that I was staying with, they came home, they must have stopped at a Tim's or something on the way home, got a cupcake with a candle in it, and they gave it to me. And I remember bawling when they gave it to me, because but that whole moment of everything in that to that point was gone. And if my legacy was all about that, there was no reason for hope.
Right.
But that was the moment when I started to say, now who am I going to be? And the journey into healing, into all of the stuff we talk in Living Richly. So that very specific
How
moment.
interesting is that, though, that we're talking about legacy, and legacy can change, right?
Right.
So I think that's like you telling that very powerful story, Rob. It's your legacy isn't like imprinted the second you're born. You get to change that. You get to kind of pave that out for yourself. Very powerful.
And there's nothing like pain and hardship to make you take a look at your life and say, am I on point? Am I living the way that I want? And that's the essence of the message of this show, of this entire movement, is about defining who you are, what you stand for. And ultimately, as we talk about legacy today, I think more and more the word deposit, the word impact, the word making a difference, right? Leaving the world a better place. For me, the fundamental, probably greatest shift, most fundamental shift in my understanding of this was during my second great awakening, April 2022, come out of a period of a lot of hurt, a lot of pain, and it led to really these conversations that we were having about what does it mean to live your best life. And for me, this particular quadrant for me, I've lived in purpose and making a difference and serving others for the better part of 40 years. I was thinking about it. Like somebody asked me recently on another show that I was on, they were interviewing me and they said, how long have you been helping people? I'm going like mid-teens. I remember bringing people like kids from school, or kids from church that were struggling. And it was a running joke at my house. My parents would be like, so who's staying this weekend? Because I was constantly bringing strays home. It's always been part of who I am. But what I realized over time, and I've talked about it before, is most of that was me trying to right a wrong. I was doing good to try to right a wrong. And the wrong that I was trying to right was me. I was the thing that was wrong, flawed, deficient, right? And so I figured maybe if I'm not a good person, if I'm fundamentally flawed, at least maybe I can make a difference in other people, and maybe eventually I can balance the ledger, right? Only to discover I didn't have to balance a ledger at all. And so now for now, when I serve and I give and I do what I do, it flows out of just who I am. There's not this guilt or shame that I'm trying to somehow run from or numb from. It's just an extension of who I am, right?
And what an amazing gift.
Yeah, it was one of the most life-changing things. And I tell the story in another show, but you remember the day I went to pick up my son at the mall from work, and I walked past a homeless guy that was sitting outside by himself in the cold. And I immediately ran inside, went up to Tim Hortons, bought him a coffee and a sandwich and brought it down to him. And I remember getting back into, I tell this story, episode 3 of the show, which seems like forever ago now, right? Episode 96 now. And I remember getting back and sitting in my Jeep, and it's like, that's who I am. This is a fundamental expression of who I am. And it's like I had recaptured something that somehow I had lost, right?
Amazing.
Legacy is a powerful thing. And again, it shows up in so many ways. Deposits made by other people, influence they've had on our lives. Again, I think often the misnomer is we think of legacy as the financial inheritance that I'm going to leave my children or leave my family.
Yeah.
Right? That's often how it's used. But again, it's this notion of that deposit that will live on after you have gone, whether that's after you've left this world or whether you encounter someone in the checkout line and you smile and make them feel good and then you're gone out of their lives. But in that moment, you made that small deposit. Who are some of the folks in your life that have been most influential, whose legacy has really inspired you?
Well, I mean, for me, it's easy. You and
Aw.
yeah,
I didn't know you were going to say that.
if we weren't recording right now, I'd give you a hug. Even.
Oh, buddy.
No, but I honestly, in all seriousness, you are somebody who your legacy and what I've seen in you, and we've known each other, many moons. We've known each other a very long time, and I've seen those transitions in life. I've watched them firsthand, and and I say this to people often if we're talking about you or they're listening to the episodes or whatever, like you genuinely, the way you show up here is you.
Yeah.
And
100%.
the authenticity around that. And you probably capture more than anyone I know the passion, the deep curiosity as a value. I see it where you're so curious to explore stuff. You're so open to, and oftentimes I've made up my mind on something and I see that curiosity in you and I go, yeah, what if I think differently? What if I just be curious about this? And so watching you through those transitions has been very inspiring for me and very motivating. Like you're probably, well, not probably, you are, that's the person who influences me the most today because of that genuine desire to just grow and be the true person you are causes me to want to be the true person I am. And I think that's a real value. So yeah, I purposely didn't put in the notes there because I didn't.
Thank you, brother. That means a lot, especially coming from you. Wow.
Well,
You guys, yeah.
Follow up on that, guys.
I don't.
Mike.
So that was a very.
So thanks for tuning in, everyone.
That was so lovely and
was
touching.
lovely.
I'll add though, I mean, so for me and just the years that we've had the opportunity to get to know each other and obviously get married and kind of walk that path, your legacy is, I feel like I'm going to start to cry.
Here we go.
Okay.
It's an emotional show.
Yeah.
Geez. Your legacy is one that deeply inspires me because, just from a meaningful and an impactful perspective. And I feel like you just do so much for so many people and you just always see the good in so many people. And you're just such a testament to your journey of showing people how they can live through the human spirit in terms of what they want and enduring and thriving and all of those things through incredible adversity. So
thank you.
Okay.
That's beautiful.
Well, I can. Mine isn't one of yours. Sorry.
Oh, wow.
No, I don't want to share mine.
Awkward.
No, not at all. No.
No, that was beautifully said, Wendy. For me, honestly, it's Maya Angelou and it's via Oprah. And for me, Oprah was like my therapist growing up.
For millions of people.
And you talk about legacy and you know, Oprah and legacy and what she's done and given back. But watching her through her own growth journey, you know, she is what opened my mind to like true spirituality, intention, mindfulness. She'd have great songs like Eckhart Tolle, and then started to bring in more women like Brene Brown. And so just really for me was, you know, very impactful. She led with kindness, right? But was a strong woman. And so later on learning that her mentor was Maya Angelou, who, you know, is this incredible woman, so well-spoken, and her backstory is horrific. She was brutally raped at like 6 or 7 years old by her mother's boyfriend. And then her uncles eventually murdered this man. And the trauma of it left her mute for 6 or 7 years. And Maya Angelou is this amazingly spoken woman who uses words. She's a poet. You know, she's on stage, powerful. And to know she didn't speak for 6 or 7 years.
Incredible.
And what she leads with is power and strength, but through kindness and forgiveness. And what I now know is I had never seen depicted in media a strong, powerful woman who stands up for herself and her rights, done in a kind way, based in forgiveness. Wow. What I saw was powerful women on shows in business suits who were nasty, mean, conniving, not good moms, and who were frankly quite bitchy. And so to see a model of what a powerful, strong, kind woman could look like, I don't think I realized until recently how much that has influenced me and what a legacy to leave behind.
Right. And I think what's most fascinating about all of those stories is we often have no clue the impact that we're having on other people. And honestly, like when you think of people you've touched, people you've encouraged, people you've helped along the way, who knows if other people somewhere else aren't saying, hey, who's influenced you the most or had a significant impact on your life, and our names might come up, or folks that are watching the show, their name might come up, and they're totally oblivious to the fact that they made that impact, right? For me, I have to say, when I think of old Eric to new Eric, you talk about transitions you've watched me go through, and you certainly have been there for many of them. You think of how long you put up with different versions of me as I'm not, right? Isn't it sad though that we often trap people in a past version of themselves, right? So we tell it's like in our minds they're not allowed to evolve, right? But, people do change if they're doing the work. But for me, it would definitely be Jim. I've talked about Jim Harrington. He's had such a significant impact on my life. We had Jim on the show last year, a couple episodes. And he's just an amazing man. He's worked with our team, and of course our coach Sherry Kane, who's also been on the show and has had such a tremendous influence. Those two individuals, more than anyone else, have been instrumental in changing me from the inside out. I had to do the work. They'll remind me of that. They said, Eric, you've done the work. I said, but I couldn't have done it without their support. And so I'm so grateful for them and for that. I don't know if you have, if all of you, if any of you have like what I would call a legacy statement or a purpose statement. And if you don't, if you had one, what would it sound like? What would it be?
I think for me, living transparently, and in your honest truth is probably the best way to describe that for me.
Yeah. Well, you use the hashtag truth dealer. Right. In all of your posts. So that resonates. As soon as you were saying that, I'm like, well, that sounds like Wendy.
Well, and even you're right. And even for Instagram, right, the real life. And we've often had conversations around that is from everyone. Real life is messy. Right. And so to have all of that, that vulnerability and the transparency showing on the way that your socials and the way that you communicate, that's what is, I hear people say it all the time, is you've given them permission, people that you've coached or that you influence through training, you give them permission to, they'll admit to you, last night I dove into a bag of whatever, chips or whatever, and I just stuffed my face and ate it all. And you'll be like, I did that with cheese. And people are like, oh, okay, there's no judgment here because of that transparency. I think that fits
everything's better with cheese.
Well, everything.
And chips,
everything. Even cheese is better than cheese.
Apparently, that's why I'll eat the whole bag of cheese curds. Right, cheese is better.
The whole bag. Yeah.
What about for you? What about a purpose statement or legacy?
Yeah, and I've defined it, and I've been tweaking it over the last little while, and so I wrote it down just to make sure that because I'm still kind of tweaking it out. But I really believe this is to inspire others to live a life of authenticity. I did it. See, pursue the highest potential and lead with integrity and compassion.
I love that.
And so, and unpacking all of that, there's lots that would be unpacked, but ultimately it is to inspire people to live their best life.
Yeah.
What about you?
I don't have one.
If you were to put one together.
And I thought about it for the show, and I'm like, I really wanted to hear you say, like, I'm taking time and I would like to take time and finesse it. So I think for me, what encompasses it though, is I want to look back with as little regret as possible. And that's really what that means for me, though, is, and putting it in a nice sentence like Rob says, is like, it really is, though, about living like aligned to my values. It's living, for me, that's a lot of kindness. It's looking back, not regretting jumping ship and starting my own business. I don't want to look back with regret on so many parts of my life with my kids, not telling them I love them every day. And that for me means being super aligned with my values and giving back and kindness. And so the statement itself, I don't have, but I know all the bits of it.
For sure. You've got that guiding you internally.
100%.
For me, it's pretty simple, and it's evolved over time. It's to live my best life and help others do the same. And what that may sound really simple, but to put that first part in there was the most significant area of growth for me, because I never thought, again, in my past, that I was worthy of goodness, worthy of a good life, that I didn't deserve that all I deserved was pain. So to put myself first goes to the model of, radical self-acceptance, radical self-care, radical self-actualization. It's interesting when we look and we talk about this whole notion of legacy, right? It was Maslow in Maslow's hierarchy of needs that he created a long time ago. And he talks about that we all have these motivational needs. And if the lower levels aren't met, you can't achieve the next one, right? So he talks about basically he starts with your physiological needs. So you need food, shelter, that's kind of basic, right? Food, water, shelter. Then he moves to security needs. You need to have a sense of safety, a sense of security. That job security even belongs in there, right? So if you feel like financial security, so that's the second layer. The third layer is love and belonging needs, if I'm getting this straight. So the need to belong, the need to be in a relationship, the need to be in community. And then ultimately the earliest the next level is self-esteem. So esteem needs, feeling good about yourself and feeling that you've got the respect of the people that matter to you. And then the last fifth layer was what he called self-actualization, becoming your best self and living your potential. What's really, really, and it's a powerful model. It's a great model. I use it all the time with my clients when we're trying to understand. I'm struggling to motivate my people. Just had this conversation with a team, and they're trying to motivate their people to self-actualize. And I'm like, you guys are talking about selling the business. So your people right now are at level 2, wondering if they'll still have a job in 6 months.
Yeah.
And you're trying to get them to, so it just opened their eyes to say, oh my God, we're having the wrong conversation here, right? We need to actually stabilize this down here if we hope our people to. But what's interesting about Maslow is very close to his death. Just before he died, he didn't like the model anymore because something was missing. He felt something had been missing from it. And he added in his final days, final moments, the level of self-transcendence, living beyond yourself. And a big part of that is giving back and again, living a life that is fully actualized, but is not just about self. It's right. It's about the greater good, right? Which I found was fascinating. And I think this ties us very closely to values, right? We talk so much about values on the show. We've already talked about values even on this show. When you think about values and how they align with the kind of life you want to live, how do you guys make sure that you're in alignment with those values, especially when life is hard?
It's hard. I know, but it is. It is. Like, let's be honest. I know for me, gratitude, you guys know this. Gratitude is one of my biggest grounding elements for me. So gratitude allows me to actually, it forces me to get present, and it forces is a strong word, but it flips my mindset around looking at a negative situation. So for me, if I think like I'm at work, something's happening with a client, I'm bitching, right? Like, to me, that's off, not aligned with my values. So when I sink into gratitude, for me, what that means is, okay, you get to be a partner in a business. Yeah. You get to have clients. You get to work this through. You get to solve this problem. And like, the get to for me is what resets me, that then allows me to be like, oh, okay, I can look at it from this lens. And so it just shifts me, and it shifts me. And I'm not like fully like like Pollyanna happy all the time. I just mean like, but it does flip my mindset enough that it shakes me out, and I'm like, oh, okay, and I can move. Yeah,
I love that. Yeah, I love that.
I love that you did use that language. You pulled back on it, but you started out. It forces you, and that's, in some ways, that's what our values should do, right? Our values are management tools. They are supposed to be the directors of what we do, and so the idea that it really does push you into another mindset. Or in my head, as you right before you shared it, I was thinking the word perspective came in. It forces another perspective before you react. And so often that's what happens is when we're in challenging situations, we react. And so for me, that's where the power of reflection comes into. When I'm if I'm forced into having to make a decision quick, or something has come up and it's because it's challenging, there's crisis happening. Now, sometimes in crisis, you do react because you have to, right? The building's on fire. That's a crisis. Get out of the building. React. Just don't think. Don't have a strategy.
Fight or flight serves you well in those
100%. But in most cases, we do have time to pause and reflect before we react. And I'm such a big believer that lasting legacy doesn't come out of the reactive moments of the day, but the proactive moments, the moments where we are able to pause and reflect. That's where the real lasting, that's where the echo happens out of. And I think it'd be able to have that moment.
Well, I love that, because I think, we talk about values being your compass, right? And that without them, we spend so much time coasting, drifting, living according to the musts, shoulds, and have tos, living the supposed life that other people think we should be living. And when we do that, we may bump into goodness and bump into moments of kindness to other people and making a difference. But legacy is a neutral word. It's not necessarily like even when we talk about making an impact. Well, impact is neutral. You can have a positive impact on the world around you. You can have a negative impact. You can pass on a positive legacy. You can pass on negative legacy. Think of generational trauma, and think of passing on like hurt and pain that you've never resolved. Now, all of us, I think, will have a mixed bag that we pass on. Let's face it, right? There's gonna be things we go, I hope my kids didn't pick up on that, and I really hope they pick up on this, right? And so there's going to be a mixed bag. But I think when you're living according to your values, right, when you define them and you're using them to guide your day-to-day actions, you are going to live a life that's more on point. And I think you will tip the scale towards passing on far more goodness and kindness and making a positive impact than passing on some of the stuff that you'd rather not pass on. Right?
Oh.
We all like it.
Me?
Look at some words of wisdom from Wendy.
Well,
wisdom words from Wendy. That'll be a new hashtag.
No, I think just really quickly for me, it's just becoming really in tune with my body. So learning very just intentional feelings, signals, signs when I need to slow the fuck down. And get very comfortable with silence. I've always been the type of person that avoids that. I think people get very uncomfortable with silence. Like if I'm coaching, my team, one thing I say is like, and people laugh. I'm like, I'll ask a question, and then nobody will say. I say I'm very comfortable with silence, and a lot of people aren't. But that's helped me be able to learn to be comfortable with my silence so that I could hear and start to work on my inner critic or whatever it is. So I've just become very in tune with my body around that.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. We were talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We're talking about that self-transcendence level that he added much later in life. And that living richly, there has to be this component in the world of even bodies of water, right? If a lake doesn't have inputs and outputs, that body of water can become stagnant. And so I think this is why it was so important to add this quadrant to this model to really get people to consider the positive impact that they want to make, the legacy that they're leaving in a day-to-day basis. I'm curious, looking at the broader scope of your lives, what areas do you feel you have made the most significant positive impact?
I would say this, one area for sure, and I can say it only because I see it in my girls and my children, is their willingness to step up and defend those who perhaps don't have a voice for themselves. I see it. I'm so like both Britt and Remy, in their own ways and in their own causes, they are willing to take a stand for others, and that's something that I hope they've seen lived out in me over the years, where I'm willing to do that, and I'm willing to stand with a marginalized group that perhaps has not had the voice that they have, that I have as a result of whether it's just my network and everything. And I see it oftentimes even in social posts and stuff like that, my girls doing the same. And whenever I do, I always reach out to them and tell them how proud I am of them for taking that stance in that. So maybe that's one that I would be able to say for sure. I hope that if they were asked, they would say that's something that we learned from our dad.
Yeah.
You know, I can only hope. I can only. Well, I could more than hope.
You can ask them.
I could ask them, but and you know, hope they don't lie to me. Right? Like, right?
Hope they don't tell you what you want to hear.
Dad, that was all you, Dad. Like, right? Yeah. But you know, that would be one that comes to mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I hope I have influence on my kid. Like, I hope that to the same degree. Do I know? I have 3 teenagers right now. I have no clue.
and our brains aren't even fully formed
yet. You could ask them.
You could ask them.
Still won't get an answer.
You still won't know. No idea.
They're like, seriously, Mom?
Yeah, exactly. So I think for me, it's wherever I've worked, I love mentoring young talent. Like, that is something that fills my cup. It's something I'm super passionate about. It's something I enjoy. And there's something about that seeks me out wherever I go as well. And so
I see that.
I know for me that has shown up in every job I've had. And I get such joy out of being able to help somebody in that setting in particular. Do I know that it's have impact? I don't know. I mean, I can, there's still people that still reach out to me, who were on my team, 15 years ago, and we still connect, and I still love those conversations. And it's so powerful to me to know that you can help someone manage a difficult situation, overcome something, like empower them to take control of their own career, to see their worth internally. For me, that is just one area I hope I've left a little bit of legacy.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. What about for you?
Very similar to what Rob and Kate said, and just continuing to be aligned with the right people that share the same values and passion that I do.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that they need to agree with everything, and that this has nothing to do with what it's about. But I've said it before, where your energy goes, your energy flows, and really being intentional about what those relationships and what those energies look like to be able to transpire into just having the right people in your circle.
I love that.
Yeah. It got me thinking, and maybe I'm going to put a challenge out to our listeners that, if there's somebody who has impacted your life in a positive way that is really, there has been that moment, don't stay silent about it.
Yeah.
But think of it right now. Maybe even hit pause here and just send a text or send a...
No, don't hit pause. You never pause this podcast.
Yeah, well, listen to it all. But right now, make a point, because I think that sometimes I know that there are often times where I will think somebody will have made an impact, and I go, oh, they know. And I don't do that. And just a perfect example is we're all because I keep thinking of now, people that have reached out to me, youth ministers or kids from programs when I ran them who have reached out. Now they're adults. Hey, I want you to know you've made that, and how meaningful that is. And so if there's, for listeners, if there's somebody that comes to mind right away, don't miss out on the opportunity to just send that note and say thank you.
Yeah, 100%. Because again, we said it earlier on the show, the vast majority of us have no idea. The people that we may have touched, impacted, influenced, even strangers that we may have had in that moment of time that we made a difference in their lives.
Absolutely.
And often I think a lot of folks live their lives thinking their lives don't matter, that there's no purpose, they're not making any kind of difference. And that note, that email, that text might really make their day, right? In terms of letting them know you've had a positive impact on me. So I'm glad you said that. For me, I'm going to say I'd like to believe the greatest area of impact has been in my coaching work, especially with long-term clients, where you have the opportunity to serve them, walk with them, support them over time, and watch the lights come on, watch them find their way, watch the penny drop, right? And know
Watch
that you've
them
been
grow up.
Watch them grow up, and watch myself grow up in the
With them.
process with them, right?
Yeah.
I'd say definitely, it's been in those one-to-one conversations where in that safe and sacred space of coaching, they let down their guard and they just show up as they are, and we're able to kind of navigate the way forward. And it's nothing. I absolutely love that. Any plans to amplify your reach over time? Not that that's the end game, because we're trying to define legacy here as it's not just the big and bold stuff that we do. It's also in the little interactions. But what plans do you have perhaps for amplifying your legacy, your impact in the near to long-term future?
Well, I'm going to start.
question.
I'm going to start a podcast called Living Richly.
Dude, we already did that.
We're doing it. We're amplifying.
Hey, I'm done.
Now I'm going to go sit on a beach.
We should just take the show to the beach.
Right, there we go.
Why are we not recording this somewhere in Costa Rica?
Hey, Steve.
Hey, Steve.
Can you do that?
Steve's all in.
I will say this: the more we lean into living our authentic lives, the more natural the notion of amplifying the impact happens. And so when you say, have you got any plans? My short answer is fuck yeah. Like, the more I experience this, the more I want others to experience it. The more I find freedom in living out my true self, the more I want others to experience that, and the opportunity to do that. I'll shout it from the rooftops. We'll shout it through this podcast. We'll shout it through our coaching. We'll shout it through our being, just attending and being part of communities like we are with Orange Theory. Like, all of that is opportunities to just impact. And so, I want to magnify that over and over again.
Yeah, I love that.
I'm addicted to it now.
Right?
Yeah, I plans. No, like, are they written down? No, I didn't write anything down. Apparently, in preparation for the podcast.
Wow.
I just
What are you doing? Just coasting around.
fooling around. But yeah, I mean, ditto to what Rob said. There's something so empowering about living authentically, and living authentically doesn't always mean it's super easy, right? It's can be hard, and relationships shift, but what comes with it is this ease of, like, there's an ease with when you're living on purpose, authentically yourself. There's no more of this need to like pretend to be someone you're not. So to empower other people to be able to live like that, it's addictive, to use Rob's word. Like, you want other people to see and learn and feel how amazing it feels to start down that journey.
Yeah.
Well, and a lot of times it like that type of mindset and that type of behavior allows us, like people like us, to be able to give people permission to live their authentic selves without feeling like they're embarrassed or whatever. But it also allows us to, like, one of my things is, I knew it from when I was a teenager that I was born to work with people, create impact, coach, mentor, all of that kind of stuff. And one of the things that I love is being able to believe in other people before they can even believe in themselves.
Love that.
Because there's so many people that don't believe in themselves because they're always cutting themselves up or they don't know how.
Yeah.
So for even like the podcast, right? We've had so many messages from people that have just been like, because I've never met you guys or whatever, you've poured belief in me and helped me be able to make decisions or recognize things before I even knew what I wanted to do or before I even believed in myself.
Yeah, absolutely love that. We're gonna land the plane very shortly here. So final lightning round. It's going to be a 2-part question. What is the most important thing you want to be remembered for, and what advice do you have for our listeners in terms of a first step towards making a greater impact with their lives? What you want to be remembered for, and advice to listeners. What would it be?
For me, it's kindness, straight up. That's one of my core values. And I want to be remembered for being kind. And kindness is a big word, and it has a lot of different verticals. I'm getting into business language, but it can be applied across a whole lot of different facets of life. So for me, kindness is super important. I think to be able to think about legacy and kind of moving towards that, or what does that even mean for you? I'm going to say do the 15-day life vision challenge. It helps you map out where you are and where you want to go. And I think so many people don't even know where to start with that. And I think that's a great tool.
Yeah.
That's why we have it.
Love it.
Yeah.
For me, if we're going to use a word, it's compassionate. And it's one of my core values is compassion. And I try to show up in every situation compassionately. I've learned, and it was a lesson that I learned from you, is that compassion doesn't mean letting people away with things, right? It's you still hold accountability. You can still be all of those things. Compassion is sometimes having the hard conversations. Yeah. But the idea that if there's one word people could use to describe me long after I'm gone, it would be that Rob demonstrated and showed up as a compassionate human being. And to the second part, and I love the fact that way back, if you go back and listen to episode 25, 26, or 7, every single thing that Kate or Wendy would say, the other one would go ditto to that. And now what's happening is we've moved to the point now that it's you and I.
I saw that today. You guys are doing
what Rob said. Well, I ditto what Kate said, and that is absolutely that's the beauty of the 15-day challenge. Is it sets the roadmap for you, and you cannot truly leave a legacy without first knowing who you are.
Right.
And the 15-day challenge does that.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I would say encouragement. So just going back to what I said before, just helping people live unapologetically, help them unleash their badassery, help them just cheer them on.
Yeah. Love that.
I think the world has enough critics and we need some more cheerleaders.
100%.
So true.
For me, it'd definitely be courage. That Eric was often afraid, but he kept getting in the saddle anyway, right? I hope to be remembered by that. And advice, I would say I would ditto everything that's been said already, and just get started. And get in touch with just how much potential you fucking have, and the good that you can do, the difference you can make just by smiling at someone at the checkout line, at looking for opportunities, even in your worst moments, to lift somebody else up. And that in itself is legacy. Guys, this has been a phenomenal conversation.
Show.
So good. And thank you for having it. And for those of you who tuned in, thank you so much for being here. We hope this has been a meaningful conversation for you. As always, we encourage you to like, share, and subscribe. Let's get the Living Richly message out there. And make sure to visit our website, livingrichlly.me, where you can find out information right on our homepage about the 15-day Life Vision Challenge, and also our Facebook group, which continues to grow and has such great content in it, the Living Richly Nation. You can find out about that. Again, thank you for tuning in every week and supporting this movement. We're so glad that you're here, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, get out there and live your best life.